Hello, this is Morel Benard with the continuation of the story Wuthering Heights. Last words were that my master requested an account of our ongoings. His nephew's offering of thanks was duly delivered. Miss Cathy gently touching on the rest. I also threw little light on his inquiries, for I hardly knew what to hide and what to reveal. And by the way, please subscribe to the channel. Please subscribe and please share the videos. Thank you. 7 days glided away, every one marking its course by the henceforth rapid alteration of Edgar Linton's state. The havoc that months had previously wrought was now emulated by the inroads of hours. Catherine we would fain have deluded yet, but her own quick spirit refused to delude her. It divined in secret and brooded on the dreadful probability, gradually ripening into certainty. She had not the heart to mention her ride when Thursday came round. I mentioned it for her and obtained permission to order her out of doors for the library, where her father stopped a short time daily, the brief period he could bear to sit up, and his chamber had become her whole world. She grudged each moment that did not find her bending over his pillow or seated by his side. Her countenance grew one with watching and sorrow, and my master gladly dismissed her to what he flattered himself would be a happy change of scene and society, drawing comfort from the hope that she would not now be left entirely alone after his death. He had a fixed idea, I guessed by several observations he let fall, that as his nephew resembled him in person, he would resemble him in mind. For Linton's letters bore few or no indications of his defective character, and I, through pardonable weakness, refrained from correcting the error, asking myself what good there would be in disturbing his last moments with information that he had neither power nor opportunity to turn to account. We deferred our excursion till the afternoon, a golden afternoon of August, every breath from the hills so full of life that it seemed whoever respired it, though dying, might revive. Catherine's face was just like the landscape, shadows and sunshine flitting over it in rapid succession. But the shadows rested longer, and the sunshine was more transient, and her poor little heart reproached itself for even that passing forgetfulness of its cares. We discerned Linton watching at the same spot he had selected before. My young mistress alighted, and told me that, as she was resolved to stay a very little while, I had better hold the pony and remain on horseback. But I dissented. I wouldn't risk losing sight of the charge committed to me a minute. So we climbed the slope of Heath together. Master Heathcliff received us with greater animation on this occasion. Not the animation of high spirits, though, nor yet of joy. It looked more like fear. "It is late," he said, speaking short and with difficulty. "Is not your father very ill? I thought you wouldn't come." "Why wouldn't you be candid?" cried Catherine, swallowing her greeting. "Why cannot you say at once you don't want me? It is strange, Linton, that for the second time you have brought me here on purpose, apparently to distress us both, and for no reason besides." Linton shivered and glanced at her, half supplicating, half ashamed. But his cousin's patience was not sufficient to endure this enigmatical behaviour. "My father is very ill," she said. "And why am I called from his bedside? Why didn't you send to absolve me from my promise when you wished I wouldn't keep it? Come. I desire an explanation. Plain and trifling are completely banished out of my mind, and I can't dance attendance on your affectations now." "My affectations?" he murmured. "What are they?" "For heaven's sake, Catherine, don't look so angry. Despise me as much as you please. I am a worthless, cowardly wretch. I can't be scorned enough, but I am too mean for your anger. Hate my father and spare me for contempt." "Nonsense," cried Catherine in a passion. "Foolish, silly boy." And there he trembles, as if I were really going to touch him. "You needn't bespeak contempt, Linton. Anybody will have it spontaneously at your service. Get off. I shall return home. It is folly dragging you from the hearthstone and pretending. What do we pretend? Let go my frock. If I pitied you for crying and looking so very frightened, you should spurn such pity. Ellen, tell him how disgraceful this conduct is. Rise, and don't degrade yourself into an abject reptile. Don't." With streaming face and an expression of agony, Linton had thrown his nerveless frame along the ground. He seemed convulsed with exquisite terror. "Oh," he sobbed, "I cannot bear it, Catherine. Catherine, I'm a traitor too, and I dare not tell you. But leave me, and I shall be killed. Dear Catherine, my life is in your hands, and you have said you loved me, and if you did, it wouldn't harm you. You'll not go then, kind, sweet, good Catherine? And perhaps you will consent, and he let me die with you." My young lady, on witnessing his intense anguish, stooped to raise him. The only feeling of indulgent tenderness overcame her vexation, and she grew thoroughly moved and alarmed. "Consent to what?" she asked. "To stay. Tell me the meaning of this strange talk, and I will. You contradict your own words and distract me. Be calm and frank, and confess at once all that weighs on your heart. You wouldn't injure me, Linton, would you? You wouldn't let any enemy hurt me if you could prevent it. I'll believe you are a coward for yourself, but not a cowardly betrayal of your best friend." "But my father threatened me," gasped the boy, clasping his attenuated fingers. "And I dread him. I dread him. I dare not tell." "Oh, well," said Catherine, with scornful compassion. "Keep your secret. I'm no coward. Save yourself. I'm not afraid." Her magnanimity provoked his tears. He wept wildly, kissing her supporting hands, and yet could not summon courage to speak out. I was cogitating what the mystery might be, and determined Catherine should never suffer to benefit him or anyone else by my goodwill, when, hearing a rustle among the ling, I looked up and saw Mr. Heathcliff almost close upon us, descending the heights. He didn't cast a glance towards my companions, though they were sufficiently near for Linton's sobs to be audible. But hailing me in the almost hearty tone he assumed to none besides, and the sincerity of which I couldn't avoid doubting, he said, "It is something to see you so near to my house, Nelly. How are you at the Grange? Let us hear. The rumour goes He added in a low tone that Edgar Linton is on his deathbed. Perhaps they exaggerate his illness. No, my master is dying, I replied. It is true enough. A sad thing it will be for us all, but a blessing for him. How long will he last, do you know? He asked. I don't know, I said. Because, he continued, looking at the two young people who were fixed under his eye, Linton appeared as if he could not venture to stir or raise his head. And Catherine could not move on his account, because that lad yonder seemed determined to beat me. And I thank his uncle to be quick and go before him. Hello, has the whelp been playing that game long? I did give him some lessons about snivelling. Is he pretty lively with Miss Linton generally? Lively? No. He has shown the greatest distress, I answered. To see him, I should say that instead of rambling with his sweetheart on the hills, he ought to be in bed, under the hands of a doctor. He shall be in a day or two, muttered Heathcliff. But first, get up, Linton, get up, he shouted. Don't grovel on the ground there. Up, this moment. Linton had sunk prostrate again in another paroxysm of helpless fear, caused by his father's glance towards him, I suppose. There was nothing else to produce such humiliation. He made several efforts to obey, but his little strength was annihilated for the time, and he fell back again with a moan. Mr. Heathcliff advanced and lifted him to lean against a ridge of turf. Now, said he, with curbed ferocity, I'm getting angry, and if you don't command that paltry spirit of yours, damn you, get up directly. I will, father, he panted. Only let me alone, or I shall faint. I've done as you wished, I'm sure. Catherine will tell you that I had been cheerful. Keep by me, Catherine. Give me your hand. Take mine, said his father. Stand on your feet. There now. She'll lend you her arm. That's right, look at her. You would imagine I was the devil himself, Miss Linton, to excite such horror. Be so kind as to walk home with him, will you? He shudders if I touch him. Linton, dear, whispered Catherine, I can't go to Wuthering Heights. Papa has forbidden me. He'll not harm you. Why are you so afraid? I can never re-enter that house, he answered. I'm not to re-enter it without you. Stop, cried his father. We'll respect Catherine Ophelia's scruples. Nellie, take him in, and I'll follow your advice concerning the doctor without delay. You'll do so? Replied I. But I must remain with my mistress. To mind your son is not my business. You are very stiff, said Heathcliff. I know that, but you'll force me to pinch the baby and make it scream before it moves your charity. Come then, my hero. Are you willing to return escorted by me? He approached once more, and made as if he would seize the fragile being, but shrinking back, Linton clung to his cousin and implored her to accompany him, with a frantic importunity that admitted no denial. However, I disapproved. I couldn't hinder her. Indeed, how could she have refused him herself? What was filling him with dread that we had no means of discerning, but there he was, powerless, under its grip, and any addition seemed capable of shocking him into idiocy. He reached the threshold. Catherine walked in, and I stood wait till she had conducted the invalid to a chair, expecting her out immediately, when Mr. Heathcliff, pushing me forward, exclaimed, "My house is not stricken with the plague, Nelly, and I have a mind to be hospitable today. Sit down, and allow me to shut the door." He shut and locked it also. I started. "You shall have tea before you go home," he added. "I am by myself. Harrington is gone with some cattle to the Leas, and Zillah and Joseph are off on a journey of pleasure, and though I'm used to being alone, I'd rather have some interesting company if I can get it. Miss Linton, take your seat by him. I give you what I have. The present is hardly worth accepting, but I have nothing else to offer. It is Linton, I mean." How she does stare. It's odd what a savage feeling I have to anything that seems afraid of me. Had I been born where laws are less strict and taste less dainty, I should treat myself to a slow visitation of those two as an evening's amusement. He drew in his breath, struck the table, and swore to himself, "By hell, I hate them." "I'm not afraid of you," exclaimed Catherine, who could not hear the latter part of his speech. She stepped close up, her black eyes flashing with passion and resolution. "Give me that key." "I will have it," she said. "I wouldn't eat or drink here if I were starving." Heathcliff had the key in his hand that remained on the table. He looked up, seized with a sort of surprise at her boldness, or possible reminded by her voice and glance of the person for whom she inherited it. She snatched at the instrument and now succeeded in getting it out of his loosened fingers. But her action recalled him to the present. He recovered it speedily. "Now, Catherine Linton," he said, "stand off, or I shall knock you down, and that will make Mrs. Dean mad." Regardless of this warning, she captured his closed hand and its contents again. "We will go," she repeated, exerting her utmost efforts to cause the iron muscles to relax, and finding that her nails made no impression, she applied her teeth pretty sharply. Heathcliff glanced at me, a glance that kept me from interfering a moment. Catherine was too intent on his fingers to notice his face. He opened them suddenly, and resigned the object of dispute. But here she had well secured it. He seized her with the liberated hand, and pulling her on her knees, administered with the other a shower of terrific slaps on both sides of the head, each sufficient to have fulfilled his threat, had she been able to fall. At this diabolical violence, I rushed on him furiously. "You villain!" I began to cry. "You villain!" A touch on the chest silenced me. I am stout, and soon put out a breath. And what with that and the rage, I staggered dizzily back, and felt ready to suffocate or to burst a blood vessel. The scene was over in 2 minutes. Catherine released, put her 2 hands to her temple, and looked just as if she were not sure whether her ears were off or on. She trembled like a reed, poor thing, and leant against the table perfectly bewildered. "I know how to chastise children, you see," said the scoundrel grimly, as he stooped to repossess himself of the key, which had dropped to the floor. "Go to Linton now, as I told you, and cry at your ease. I shall be your father tomorrow, all the father you'll have in a few days, and you shall have plenty of that. You can bear plenty. You're no weakling. You shall have a daily taste if I catch such a devil of a temper in your eyes again." Cathy ran to me instead of Linton, and knelt down and put her burning cheek on my lap, weeping aloud. Her cousin had shrunk into a corner of the settle, as quiet as a mouse, congratulating himself, I dare say, that the correction had alighted on another than him. Mr. Heathcliff, perceiving us all confounded, rose and expeditiously made the tea himself. The cups and saucers were laid ready. He poured it out and handed me a cup. "Wash away your spleen," he said, "and help your own naughty pet and mine. It is not poisoned, though I prepared it. I'm going out to seek your horses." Our first thought on his departure was to force an exit somewhere. We tried the kitchen door, but that was fastened outside. We looked at the windows. They were too narrow for even Cathy's little finger. "Master Linton," I cried, seeing we were regularly imprisoned, "you know what your diabolical father is after, and you shall tell us, or I'll box your ears as he has done your cousins." "Yes, Linton, you must tell," said Catherine. "It was your sake I came, and it will be wickedly ungrateful if you refuse." "Give me some tea, I'm thirsty, and then I'll tell you," he answered. "Mrs. Dean, go away. I don't like you standing over me. Now, Catherine, you are letting your tears fall into my cup. I won't drink that. Give me another." Catherine pushed another to him and wiped her face. I felt disgusted at the little wretch's composure, since he was no longer in terror for himself. The anguish he had exhibited on the moor subsided as soon as ever he entered Wuthering Heights, so I guessed he had been menaced with an awful visitation of wrath if he failed in decoying us there. And that accomplished, he had no further immediate fears. "Papa wants us to be married," he continued, after sipping some of the liquid. "And he knows your papa won't let us marry now, and he's afraid of my dying if we wait. So we are to be married in the morning. And you are to stay here all night. And if you do as he wishes, you shall return home next day and take me with you." "Take you with her? Pitiful, challenging," I exclaimed. "You marry? Why, the man is mad, or is he? He thinks us fools, every one. And do you imagine that beautiful young lady, that healthy, hearty girl, will tie herself to a little perishing monkey like you? Are you cherishing the notion that anybody, let alone Miss Catherine Linton, would have you for a husband? You want whipping for bringing us in here at all, with your dastardly pulling tricks. And don't look so silly now. I've a very good mind to shake you severely for your contemptible treachery and your imbecile conceit." I did give him a slight shaking, but it brought on the cough, and he took to his ordinary resource of moaning and weeping, and Catherine rebuked me. "Stay all night?" "No," she said, looking slowly round. "Ellen, I'll burn that door down, but I'll get out." And she would have commenced the execution of her threat directly. But Linton was up in alarm for his dear self again. He clasped her in his two feeble arms, sobbing, "Won't you have me and save me? Not let me come to the Grange? Oh, darling Catherine, you mustn't go and leave after all. You must obey my father. You must." Oh. Join me for the next episode, the next video of Wuthering Heights. Join me for the next video, next episode of Wuthering Heights. I'll see you then. Bye.